There's a piece of art that I believe will one day be seen as the defining image of our era. It's not in a museum, it's a meme. You know the one. A friendly-looking dog, wearing a jaunty little party hat, sits at a table with a mug of coffee. All around him, the room is completely, spectacularly on fire. Flames are licking the walls, smoke is billowing, and the dog, with a placid little smile, simply says, "This is fine. This is fine. My life is a four-alarm fire, but I just took a sip of lukewarm coffee, so things are basically under control." This is the official mascot for that sinking, sticky feeling that nothing ever gets any better. It's the quiet desperation of trying to maintain composure while your internal world is burning down. We've all been that dog. Some of us are that dog right now. You might be looking around, wondering if you can smell smoke. So why? Why do we get stuck in that burning room, sipping our coffee and pretending the inferno is just ambitious ambient lighting? You'd think we'd want to run, to scream, to find a fire extinguisher, but often we just sit there. And the reason, I think, is that the arsonist is an inside job. The call is coming from inside the house. In fact, the call is coming from inside our own head. Our brain, for all its magnificent achievements like calculus and pizza toppings, can be a real saboteur. It has a few favourite, treacherous little tricks it likes to play on us. The first is a fun one called rumination. This is your brain acting as a DJ at the worst party you've ever been to. It has a very limited playlist. In fact, it has one song. That song is titled "A Comprehensive List of All Your Failures and Future Worries, the Remix." And the repeat button is permanently jammed. You lie in bed at 3 a.m. and the track starts spinning. That awkward thing you said in 2007. That email you have to send tomorrow. That time you tripped in public. It feels productive, like you're really thinking about your problems, but you're not. You're just practicing for the Misery Olympics and you're on track to win gold. This mental mixtape of doom leads directly to the next trick, learned helplessness. This is a concept coined by psychologists who, I assume, spent a lot of time watching people try to assemble IKEA furniture. You face an uncontrollable negative situation once or twice, say trying to figure out which of the 50 identical screws holds the whole thing together, and after a few hours of soul-crushing failure, you just give up. You decide that your destiny is to have a pile of particle board and a small bag of mysterious metal bits in your living room forever. You have learned to be helpless. A few setbacks convince you that all effort is futile. The thought, "I can't," graduates from a fleeting feeling to a core tenet of your personality. And backing all of this up is a delightful crew of cognitive biases, which are basically funhouse mirrors for your perception of reality. There's the status quo bias, which is the belief that the devil you know is better than the angel you have to put on pants and go outside to meet. An unfulfilling job? A boring routine? Well, at least it's predictable. Change is scary. Stagnation is cozy. It has a blanket and snacks. Then there's the sunk cost fallacy, my personal favourite. This is the logic that convinces you to keep watching a terrible movie for 3 hours just because you already sat through the first 30 minutes. You've invested too much time, energy, or misery to quit now. You apply this to jobs you hate, relationships that are going nowhere, and that sourdough starter you've been feeding for 6 months, even though it just looks like angry paste. You're not just wasting your future, you're honouring the waste of your past. Put all of these glitches together, the rumination, the helplessness, the biases, and you create the perfect recipe for a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure. This is where you become a powerful psychic whose only vision of the future is your own demise. You believe you're going to fail at something, a project, a diet, a conversation. So, influenced by that belief, You don't really try. You put in a half-hearted effort. You procrastinate. And then, when you inevitably fail, you get to say, "See, I knew it." You're not a pessimist, you're a realist. A realist who has expertly rigged the game to ensure you're always right. It's a genius, if deeply tragic, feedback loop. Of course, it's not all our fault. Our brains may be building the pyre, but society is handing us the matches. Welcome to the grand hall of mirrors we call social media. Here, you get to compare the director's cut of your own life, complete with every flubbed line, every awkward pause, every moment you forgot what you came into a room for, with everyone else's perfectly edited, colour-graded, auto-tuned highlight reel. You're scrolling through your phone, seeing your cousin's trip to Bali, your friend's promotion, and a stranger's impossibly perfect avocado toast. Meanwhile, you're on your couch, you've been wearing the same sweatpants for 3 days, and you just ate cereal for dinner. The comparison is brutal. It's designed to be. It feeds the rumination machine. It confirms your learned helplessness. It can even lead to something called anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure. The joy from your own small victories, like finally putting on real pants, gets completely washed out by the fire hose of someone else's curated perfection. Your life feels dull and grey because you're constantly comparing it to a fantasy world that's been run through 1,000 filters. So, feeling overwhelmed by our own brains and the digital ghosts of everyone's happiness, where do we turn? To the big thinkers, of course, the philosophers. Surely these people who spent their lives pondering existence have the answer. Well, I have some news. They don't. In fact, some of them make it worse. You've got guys like Nietzsche and Sartre, the existentialists, who basically came to the conclusion that life has no inherent meaning or purpose. There is no grand plan. There is no instruction manual. We're all just kind of here. On one hand, this is terrifying. It's the ultimate "this is fine" moment. The entire universe is a burning room, and there's no fire department. On the other hand, it's strangely liberating. If there's no cosmic rule book, you can't technically be breaking any rules. You can't be failing at a game that has no objective. Then you have the absurdists, like Albert Camus. He agreed life was meaningless, but thought the beautiful part was our constant, absurd struggle to find meaning anyway. He said we should be like Sisyphus, the guy doomed to push a rock up a hill for eternity. We should find joy in the struggle itself, which sounds lovely, but I have to imagine that some days even Sisyphus just looked at the rock and said, "You know what, mate? Not today. I'm staying in bed." Perhaps the most practical advice comes from the Stoics. Their whole philosophy was about focusing on what you can control and accepting what you can't. They advocated for small, incremental progress. You don't have to put out the whole house fire at once. You don't have to rebuild the house. Just, move your chair a few inches away from the biggest flame. Maybe open a window. That's a win. Celebrate that. The point is, there is no single easy answer. And that brings me to the most important part. This feeling, this sense of being stuck, of being the dog in the burning room, is one of the most common yet unspoken feelings shared amongst all of humanity. We are all at times overwhelmed. We all feel inadequate. We all feel like we are falling behind in a race we never signed up for. It's a secret we carry around, convinced we're the only one. But we're not. The person next to you feels it. The person you envy on Instagram feels it. Everyone is just trying to keep their little party hat from catching on fire. And recognizing the universality of the feeling and the psychological tricks our minds play on us to keep us there, is the beginning of a solution. It's not a magic fix, but it is the moment you stop smiling at the flames and start looking for the fire extinguisher. The goal isn't to build a fireproof life. The goal is to get better at spotting the smoke. It's to understand that rumination is not thinking, that helplessness can be unlearned, and that your life is not meant to look like a social media feed. So yes, this is fine. And by fine, I mean it's a fundamental, messy, and deeply shared part of being human. And knowing that we're all sitting in our own little fires together, well, that's a strange and powerful kind of warmth.